In the quiet town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, life seemed peaceful in the mid-20th century. Families worked on their farms. They attended church on Sundays and neighbors trusted each other. But beneath this simple life, a horror was growing. A strange man lived in an isolated farmhouse. His name was Edward Theodore Gein. The people around him saw him as an odd but harmless man. However, they had no idea of the nightmare hidden inside his home. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in the small city of La Crosse, Wisconsin. From the moment he entered the world, his life was shaped by the people around him, especially his mother. His mother was a deeply religious woman who followed strict and extreme beliefs. She was a religious fanatic who viewed the world through a harsh and unforgiving lens. She despised women and believed that they were the root of all evil. She passed these beliefs down to her children, teaching them that women were sinful, manipulative, and dangerous. Ed grew up in a home filled with fear and strict rules. His mother did not allow him or his older brother to have friends. She kept them isolated from the outside world, warning them about the dangers of society. She constantly reminded them that only she could be trusted. While his mother ruled the home with religious teachings, Ed's father was the opposite. His father was a weak and troubled man who struggled with alcohol addiction. He was an abusive alcoholic who failed to provide for his family. He could not hold a steady job and spent much of his time drinking. When he was home, he was often violent, taking out his frustrations on his wife and children. Unfortunately, at a young age, Ed lost his father. His death left the family in the complete control of his mother. With no father figure and no outside influence, Ed and his brother were left alone with their mother's strict and oppressive beliefs. She became their only source of guidance. In 1945, Ed Gein's world changed forever. His mother, the one person who had dominated his entire life, passed away. With her gone, Ed was left completely alone. He had no friends, no wife, and no real connection to anyone outside his home. His entire existence had revolved around his mother, and now, without her, he was lost. After his mother's death, Ed's behavior became even more unusual. Instead of moving on, he clung to the past. He sealed off his mother's bedroom, refusing to let anyone enter. He kept it exactly as she had left it, perfectly clean, organized, and untouched. It became a shrine to the woman who had controlled his life, frozen in time as if she had never left. While his mother's room remained pristine, the rest of the house fell into utter ruin. Ed stopped taking care of his home. Dust covered the furniture, trash piled up, and the entire house became a filthy, decaying mess. He lived in absolute squalor, surrounded by rotting food, broken furniture, and filth. But inside this crumbling farmhouse, something even darker was growing. As time passed, Ed's obsessions took shape. He had always been fascinated by anatomy, death, and the human body. But now, without his mother's strict control, his morbid curiosity turned into something far more disturbing. He began visiting local cemeteries at night, digging up freshly buried bodies. He specifically targeted the graves of women who resembled his mother. Stealing corpses became an obsession. He brought the bodies back to his farmhouse, where he experimented with them. He dissected them, studied their anatomy, and removed body parts to use for his twisted creations. He made lampshades out of human skin, bowls from skulls, and even upholstered furniture with flesh. The most disturbing of all was his attempt to create a full-body suit made entirely from a woman's skin. But as time went on, grave robbing was no longer enough for him. The stolen bodies didn't satisfy his growing urges. He needed something more. He needed fresh bodies. On the cold evening of December 8, 1954, a 51-year-old woman who owned a small tavern in the quiet town of Plainfield mysteriously vanished without a trace. Her bar, once filled with the laughter and conversations of local patrons, was eerily silent. The only sign that something terrible had happened was a pool of blood left behind on the floor. Rumors spread quickly through the town, with people speculating about what might have happened to her. However, no one ever suspected the quiet and awkward Ed Gein, who had always seemed like nothing more than a reclusive oddball. On the chilly morning of November 16, 1957, another shocking disappearance shook the town of Plainfield. The owner of the local hardware store, a middle-aged woman, failed to open her shop as usual. Concerned customers and townsfolk grew uneasy when they found the store abandoned. The cash register was untouched, but there was one crucial piece of evidence: a sales receipt. The last customer recorded in the ledger was none other than Ed Gein. Suspicion quickly fell on Gein, and later that night, police officers arrived at his isolated farmhouse to question him. What they found inside would defy belief and horrify even the most seasoned investigators. Inside the dimly lit home, the body of the missing store owner was discovered, hanging upside down from the rafters like a butchered animal. Her head had been removed, and her internal organs were missing. But this gruesome discovery was only the beginning. As the officers continued their search, they uncovered a collection of horrors that seemed straight out of a nightmare. Skulls had been turned into bowls and drinking cups. A belt had been crafted from human nipples. Chairs had been upholstered using human skin. A lampshade had been made from a human face. Each object was more disturbing than the last, revealing the extent of Gein's twisted obsession. But perhaps the most shocking discovery of all lay in his bedroom. Among the filth and decay, police found what appeared to be an entire bodysuit made entirely from human skin. It included a mask, breasts, and leggings, carefully stitched together. Investigators would later learn that Gein had been constructing this suit so that he could wear it and, in his own mind, become his mother. That same night, on November 16, 1957, Gein was arrested and taken into custody. During his interrogation, he quickly confessed to the murders of both the missing hardware store owner and the tavern owner from years before. However, he also admitted that many of the human remains found in his home had not come from murder victims, but from graves he had robbed over the years. He had spent years desecrating cemeteries, digging up the bodies of recently buried women, and using their remains for his grotesque creations. Despite the unspeakable horrors he had committed, psychologists soon determined that Gein was mentally unfit to stand trial. In 1958, he was declared legally insane and was sent to a mental institution instead of a prison. There, he remained under psychiatric care, where doctors studied his mind in an attempt to understand his motivations. After spending a decade in the mental hospital, authorities finally deemed him competent enough to stand trial. In 1968, he was convicted of one count of murder, though he was again ruled legally insane, sparing him from the death penalty. Instead, he was sent to the Central State Hospital for the criminally insane, where he would remain for the rest of his life. On July 26, 1984, at the age of 77, Gein died of cancer. His body was buried in the Plainfield Cemetery, the same burial ground where he had once dug up so many of his victims. Over the years, his grave became a site of macabre curiosity. People frequently vandalized it, chipping off pieces of his tombstone as a souvenir. Eventually, the entire headstone was stolen.